Hello again, and welcome to another of Mosaic's coffee breaks. Mosaic is, of course, a collaboration of the organisations shown at the front of this presentation, and that collaboration focuses very much on the ownership issues associated with mid-market law firms. And when we say ownership, we mean everything associated with ownership, mergers and acquisitions, partnership structures, succession planning, partner exits, and everything associated with all of those issues. I hope you enjoy this broadcast.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Mosaic coffee break. It's nice to see you all and hope you've got your coffee handy. We're delighted to have with us today John Newton of Sursum Solutions, who's an expert in the cultural aspects of M&A. And I know we've talked about that before. I think we have apologies from some of our other regular contributors. Tom Blandford's been stuck in court. He assures us that that's a professional engagement. And Nigel Haddon unfortunately can't be with us, but we're excited to have John, and we're here to talk about culture. So, do you want to introduce yourselves? You introduce yourself, John.
Yes, I will, absolutely. Thank you, Mark. My name is Dr. John Newton. The doctor comes from a PhD I did in organizational culture back in the mid-90s. And it was a part of my preparation for a professional life as the leader of two independent schools, one in the United Kingdom for 10 years in Somerset and one for 8 years in South Australia. And it struck me at that point that culture was the key to strategic success. That getting the culture and mindset of an organization right would enable progress, would enable good decision making, good strategic decision making in particular, change of direction or appropriate transformation that would make my two schools successful. And it proved to be a very good investment. So I had two very enjoyable periods as school leader, both of which ended up with particular educational success, but also a healthy financial success as well. And rather like law firms, teachers and schools are complex beings because they're chock full of people with very good hearts and very good minds. So you have to be, one of the most important key skills is a persuasive person and one who is prepared to meet people halfway and listen to their views. Those are critical aspects of making things work. When I came back from Australia, I did some research into culture and M&A, realizing that this was a particularly hot topic in that area. And that's how I came across Tom and these excellent fellows who do these excellent podcasts.
We must say Tom Blandford is our other colleague who can't be here. He's also runs a firm called Sursum Advisory, not
Yes,
to be confused or joined with you in any way, entirely independently. So
purely coincidental.
purely coincidental.
Great love
Um,
of Latin. I think I
Yeah.
don't, that's a brilliant start. I know if anybody's watched our Wolf Shark videos, you know,
Mm,
we often say that that's a scenario where law firm mergers fail and it's culture. And I force myself, and everyone's watched these before will know, to quote Peter Drucker, once a week, in terms of, you'll remember, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think is
absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
to him. So,
Mm,
if a firm is thinking of merging with another firm, either acquiring
mm,
another firm or even being acquired, as we all
mm.
know, there's no such thing as a merger, culturally, where do you think they should start, John?
Well, my first comment to somebody saying I'm thinking of merging with another company is to say good luck, because these are frequently very hard exercises to get right.
Mhm.
And therefore, my advice would be to think long and hard and read some really good literature about the process of M&A beyond just the amalgamation of the finances or the combination of the database or the customer base or whatever it might be, or the client base in the case of law firms. It is not a process to be entered in lightly. It can bring enormous benefits, but the companies that I researched, they were self-selecting because it was by invitation that I sent out a large number of invitations and interviewed a lot of CEOs who wanted to talk to me about their success. And of course, the ones who completely failed didn't want to talk to me at all. And looking at the majority, not all, but majority of the people I talked with, they'd done it once and been lucky and it had worked out. However, the two or three I spoke with who were cyclical, almost addictive M&A people had a very strong playbook, a process which they honed and refined every time they did it. They accepted there were some things that might go wrong, but they had some very good instincts, which I'll come to in a second, which helped them through the process.
Mm.
So it is a question, first of all, for a firm. Is this going to be a one-off, or is this going to be something you do as a matter of course? Because as a one-off, you might fail the first time, learn an awful lot, and be very good for the next three or four times. It's a very important question to therefore to answer. Where do we start culturally? Know what your own culture is. It's very easy for people to be bland about describing their culture. I've said to many CEOs, "Tell me about your culture," knowing that's a very deep question, and they give me the one sentence answer because CEOs are simple people, Mark. They like simple solutions. They like nicely, easily identified
Mm.
solutions and answers and projects and everything else. And actually, you by describing your culture, you're looking at not just your aspiration and your values, which is what people generally mean. They don't tend to really drill down into what really happens on the on in the offices, in the office spaces or the factory floors or whatever it might be, and therefore are a little bit complacent about where they are and can sometimes overlook some particularly gruesome phenomena which are eating their strategy for breakfast.
So, John, you say describe your culture, and I'd have no idea how to describe the culture where I've worked in the past. I had a
Mm.
feeling of what it was, but I couldn't describe it. How do
Very
you get
good.
to the bottom? How do you get to the bottom of that?
Very good question. There is a clear feeling in organizations, whether you're in a command and control culture, things come down the line. So if you're in an army corps or you're in a emergency service, that there is a strong sense of structure. There are other organizations which don't need structure, which are very cooperative, collaborative, collegiate, where there is strong, what I call cultural or corporate telepathy. The boss, they know what the boss thinks. The boss has communicated well what they believe in as their values and models that behavior, and that behavior is modeled elsewhere. So that sort of mind reading needs fewer formal structures, policies, procedures, because because it works for them and is known by all. But that tends to feature small organizations. There is a culture, I suspect, having spoken to my sister-in-law, who is a KC and has worked now in two chambers in London, that there is a strong culture in law firms of siloed thinking because of the self-employment
Yeah.
dimension. You are herding cats. There is a unwillingness to be on a committee which looks at the strategy of the organization. There's an unwillingness to give time which they don't need to give to more
Mm.
corporate needs. There is a sense of not even being around because you're busy in court, you're working from home, you're working as you travel, and now with communication tools the way they are, you don't have to go to the chambers to pick the big thick tome off the shelf anymore. And
Mm.
there is also potentially a very supportive culture for pupils and for newly recruited lawyers, or there isn't, and there is a sink or swim, dog eat dog attitude. So there are different characteristics, and the best companies think hard about these things, and they don't just say, "What do we want?" in terms of culture, what would be nice to have. They talk about what are our objectives, what's our strategy, and what's the culture we need to get there.
That's good.
John, you've given a
The-
fascinating insight of just four particular types there in terms of command and control, collegiate, supportive, silo.
Mm.
Is there a definitive list of types of cultures which people fall into, much as you can do in personality types?
There probably is. Although when my kids say, "Dad, what on earth are you talking about? What's this culture nonsense that you've been researching all these years, for which you fraudulently got yourself a PhD from the University of Reading, etc., etc." I say, well, imagine two McDonald's branches. Imagine that you've got one where you walk in and everything is too much trouble. No one smiles at you. You don't like the people behind the counter. There's mess everywhere. No one clears up, moves the trays out of the way so you can sit down, etc., because the management is unwilling to model that behavior, and people don't like to follow what the manager barks at them from their office. In a second McDonald's, you go, everything is easy. Everything, the answer is yes to everything. Everything's cleared up. The boss is out there greeting people, clearing up tables, setting the right tone, etc. Which one are you going to go to? Same product, equal distance from the house. There's no difference in the atmosphere when you walk in, but you're going to go to the one with the best service, where there is a good culture, where you encounter.
No, I'm going to the one with the drive-through.
Well, that's right. And then you'd have to encounter us all. But I always think when I introduce people to my schools, that when they came to visit, they encountered a culture. And I would always say to parents that you've not come to a school, you've come to a village, a way of life, a place which is going to enhance your children's lives in many ways, not just their academic ways. And but that was the kind of school I ran. I attended the Manchester Grammar School, which was a very different culture. It didn't have a strong well-being, mental health dimension. It didn't have a strong pastoral culture. It was very focused on Oxbridge and higher academic language. I benefited from that enormously, of course, as you can imagine. So there were very different cultures and very different ways of doing business. So those schools or McDonald's or whatever you want to, there can be different cultures within similar organizations.
So you have a system or a methodology, do you, in terms of analysing and understanding what the culture is?
Yes, so I have a set interview process. In fact, I've just done this with a very interesting company in Preston, where we've been looking at the culture of the organization and deciding whether the culture is the right foundation, whether the mentality of the people in the organization is appropriate for a growth strategy. Now, M&A is a form of growth strategy, and therefore the piece of work I did analysed where they were, what the key features of the culture were. For example, what is the attitude towards training and development? What's the attitude towards innovation? What sort of overview do you have of this? How well do you know the strategy? Is there enough transparency for you in this organisation? Do you feel you know the finances? Where do you think the organisation should be going? Oh, I think it should stand still. I'm very happy. I don't care. Or we think we need to go this direction or that direction. And it built up a picture of what were going to be the cultural challenges to a growth strategy, and therefore they could be addressed. And I'll give you one finding. So obviously it's confidential, was the detail, but one finding was that there could be more consultation with staff and more openness and transparency about where the company is. And that would be a key to unleashing better conversations, better buy-in, better engagement. Now, when we come to an M&A process, you're doing this process for both organizations. It's quite hard to do it for the one you're merging with.
Right. Now, I think that's a really interesting place to draw this conversation to a close. We've talked about culture and what it is and how you might begin to define it, which is really interesting. We've used up about our 10 minutes that we like for these, but we're going to record another session with John where I think we'll pick up on exactly where you were going in terms of how do you use culture within an M&A process. So thank you very much for listening.
Not at all.
John, for coming along, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Howard.